Everybody's trying to guard him. Everyone.
I told you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I am John with jumper. Gets that bucket.
It's easy for basketball fans to enjoy this. The high pick and roll, the right to left cross, the long range pull up that KD has done over and over and over throughout his career. It's beautiful to us. It's what makes me keep coming back for more. It's the game we love being played at the highest level. But I understand that not everyone has that relationship with basketball, and while I question how you ended up watching a pretty niche basketball documentary, that's fine. I'm happy to have you here. And while you may not be able to engage with the basketball element, we can enjoy this together. Because this game isn't just about the sport. There's nothing I could possibly say to add to this frame. It's a Renaissance painting. You don't need context to appreciate its beauty. It speaks to the fact that in his legendary Hall of Fame career, this is still KD's favorite moment. This late August night in 2011 came in the middle of an NBA lockout. In fact, it might just be the only reason KD's here. That's what everyone's here for too. There was no announcement. There was just the allure of a couple of words. KD's at the Rucker. You can see it in the gradually growing number of spectators before we got here. And the explosion of community embracing a spectacular person that is no longer just a spectacle. This is seemingly the NBA's dream. It's just about basketball. At that moment, nothing mattered but the 94 feet of asphalt on 155th Street. It is not that easy. As their center of street ball, the culture of the court is baked into New York. From the Harlem Rens to the Knicks, to the courts of Dyckman Park and the Rucker. There's no way to avoid what that sport means for this city. The NBA saw the rugged but honest game of basketball in New York, the styles of showboating and trash talk that led to this need for fans to not just view but enter the court, as well as the engagement of the community, and they knew there was an untapped financial opportunity there. What they did over the next 70 years to replace that gritty battle with their sterilized game would become the central struggle in the history of basketball. And it starts and ends in the best city in the world.
Are you satisfied? Do you lie there in the silence of the night and wonder if you got it right? Are you satisfied? Do you lie there in the silence of the night?
This is Bob Douglas. I think the first thing you notice about Bob is the glasses that would fit into a costume of a genius character in a John Hughes movie. And I think that's pretty fitting. See, Bob had devoted his life to basketball after he was introduced to it in 1908. He started the co-ed Spartan Sports Club, and from that was born the most popular sports team in Harlem, the all-black Spartan Braves. Bob played on the team, but his genius was not on the court, but off of it. After his retirement, he started running the team from the sidelines, and Bob realized early that the Braves needed credibility. In 1923, Bob made two massive changes. He negotiated a new home for the Braves, and he gave out paid player contracts. With a new home came a new name, and the Renaissance Big Five of Harlem came into existence, so named after the Renaissance Ballroom on 137th Street. Bob hated naming the team the Renaissance, but had used it as a bargaining chip. The Rens, as he would later dub them, were the first black-owned, fully black-rostered professional basketball team, and they were the living dream of Bob Douglas. And Bob knew exactly what he was doing, too. For the Rens' inaugural game, they beat an all-white collegiate team. After winning by 6, the baskets were taken down, a stage was rolled out, and the crowd from the basketball game became the audience to an all-night jazz concert. The players would usually stick around and dance in their jerseys. This was not about basketball. Bob wasn't selling basketball. He was selling the culture of Harlem. And he understood that. Bob was not the only man with the idea of combining performance and basketball. There was another team named after Harlem, and it came from less of a dream and more of a coincidence. And we have to go to Chicago for that. If Bob was the genius, Abe Saperstein was Rudy. Saperstein, born in 1902, grew up in Chicago in his father's tailor shop. His father had changed their name to avoid the anti-Semitism rampant in the North Side. Bob was born 20 years earlier, but the two of them came to basketball at a similar time. While Bob had slowly built up connections and marketability, Abe got lucky when he was hired by legendary Negro League pitcher Walter Thomas Ball to organize a tour around Illinois for a black baseball team. Suddenly, in his mid-20s, Abe had his dreams at his fingertips. There's not much of a record of this time that remains. No resource knows exactly when Ball hired Abe. They all list it as the mid to late 1920s. But what we do know is that Abe nailed it. But Abe was less interested in baseball than in basketball, so he returned to his first love in 1926. I'm going to take a little bit of a detour here to set up a comparison for you. And you can argue that it's in bad faith or whatever, but I'm going to make it, and let's see if you can figure it out. First, both groups were managed by Jewish men who had grown up in poor white neighborhoods where they were supported by their manual labor working father. Second, both groups were black and were lured by said agent with promises of lots of money. Third, the agent had come from a tangentially related field but had no experience before taking over the group. Fourth, both agents used what they knew about the culture they were entering to sell as much product as possible. And fifth, they both heavily leaned into the marketing of their group's name. Differences, while Jerry Heller imploded NWA with his ego and financial manipulation, Abe Saperstein actually did affect social change. And while Jerry Heller was by all accounts an asshole, everyone seemed to like Abe Saperstein. Everyone seemed to like the product he was presenting too. While Bob had focused on bringing basketball and performance closer, Abe had slammed them together into an amalgamation that was considered to be more like choreographed dance than an actual game. Even today, the Globetrotters are all about making a show that drips with style and attitude. But when they played in tournaments, it was all about business.
Bongo on the hit that time. Hey, Goose, look where you're shooting.
And when the Rens met the Globetrotters in the semifinals of the inaugural World Professional Basketball Tournament in 1939, it was about who would be representing black basketball to the world, and who would have their chance against the all-white NBL Oshkosh All-Stars waiting in the final. The Globetrotters had still never played a game in Harlem, but their jerseys were plastered in everything to say the opposite. And yet, having both teams get here was massive. Bob wanted this so bad. The Rens wanted this. Harlem wanted this. But sitting in front of them were frauds that their efforts had inspired. Here we go. This is all the info we have left about this game. Rens beat Trotters. I've browsed all of the newspapers I can find in online archives, and no one has any more than this. Following the biggest game in the history of black basketball to that date, featuring two teams named after New York, the story was only told in 4 sentences. Why? Because it is March 28th, 1939, and papers are focused on Churchill and Hitler, which makes this piece all the more amazing. While the New York Times was busy headlining with white American excellence in horse racing, Wendell Smith of the Pittsburgh Courier used a team that had nothing to do with Pittsburgh as the headline. Now, some of you will recognize the Courier as one of the first and longest-running black newspapers, and some of you will recognize Wendell Smith as the MLB writer who almost single-handedly led to the integration of baseball and was the precursor for the legend of Jackie Robinson. Wendell Smith, particularly, is so fucking cool, but this is a basketball story, not a baseball one, and I don't have the time to tell you about him. Here's what I can show you about his story. Please pause this and go look him up.
Well, first of all, Wendell was the one who was campaigning for integration for, 10 years before Jackie Robinson came along. Seriously, he had been out, organizing tryouts for Negro League players. He had been writing tons and tons of articles in his paper and other papers. He'd been doing everything he could to try to get people to take notice of this huge issue, And so by continuing his career,
the lack of coverage was nothing new to Bob. In fact, it's part of Bob's greatest blunder. The Rens play Oshkosh in the final for $10,000. Game is set for March 29th. 2 years earlier, the Rens played Oshkosh in the final game of their season. It was the biggest failure of Bob's career. It started on the 21st of March, with the Rens chartering a bus from Harlem to Oshkosh. It was supposed to be a 3-game series between the two most popular teams in the world at the time. The games were to be held in Wisconsin, granting the All-Stars home court advantage in every game. It was a 15-hour drive. By the time they arrived, they were far too exhausted to have any business being on a basketball court. Doesn't matter. The show must go on. Game 1. Game 1 in Oshkosh was never particularly close. The Oshkosh Northwestern, the only paper that covered the series in any detail, keeps the information sparse, but it seems like after sitting in a bus for ages, the Rens couldn't play their fast game, and the All-Stars got to the free throw line 16 times to the Rens' 9. Game 2 was the opposite. The Rens started the game off with a 36-13 first half and cruised to a 52-44 win. Game 3 was our first close match, but after entering the fourth quarter with a 5-point lead, the Rens did enough to tread water and win the game. After 3 games, the Rens lead 2-1. The series had always been planned to be 5 games, and we see that when the teams suit up for their 4th game in as many days. Before we move on to games 4 and 5, we need to talk about the Rens off-court situation. The black players of the Rens can't get a warm meal anywhere. They can't get a hotel room. They can't even buy any better supplies than a loaf of bread to add to what they brought. The players are sleeping in the bus. 2 of the main risk factors for hypothermia are age and exhaustion. After playing a game a day in these temperatures, the whole team is at risk. Ignore the team. If they stick around here, someone is going to die. But Bob asked them to keep playing, and so they did. All in the Valley of Death rode the 600. And they did it. The Northwestern says it themselves. The Rens are world champs at that point. And what a win it was. The Rens never trailed in Game 4. They go into Game 5 with a no-lose situation. And they did lose, but who cares? At the end of the game, Lonnie Darling, the owner of the All-Stars, shook Bob's hand and offered him a deal. Let's extend the series to 7 games. You'll get your news coverage in New York, and we can keep this going for even more money. Most accounts of this story have erased this because it just seems too cruel. I can't find a record of a 6th game, and it doesn't really matter, does it? We knew the Rens lost it, which led us to a Game 7. It's been a week of sleeping in a bus in cold-ass rural Wisconsin without a warm meal. It's been a week of carrying the hopes of black basketball while no one will report about your successes and will only give you any type of coverage after you lost. It's just fucking stupid. You can say that Bob should have just walked away with his Game 5 victory, but I ask you this. Have you ever walked away from a double or nothing situation without thinking, what if I won? Bob trusted his guys. His guys trusted him. But at some point, legs can't move off of trust. Shots don't go in because you believe they will. And sometimes you've slept in a bus in freezing temperatures for 6 nights, spent your evening sprinting around on a hardwood, and ended your night with a bread sandwich because you can't get a meal anywhere. It's hard to argue that Bob fucked up when all he wanted was credit for his team. And who are we to judge a man chasing his dream? And there he stood, staring his dreams in the face once again. It's one game, winner take all. On the 3-year anniversary of Bob's nightmarish mistake, he's asked to fly with melted wings. Here are the men that took on that dream. The game isn't even close. It's not even as interesting as what happened afterwards. When presented with their championship jackets, John Isaac left the locker room, came back with a razor blade, and made his own edits. When he was done, the jacket read World Champions, with a scrap of removed fabric, draped on the floor with the qualifier colored and blazoned on it. When he won a championship again 4 years later with the Washington Bears, he didn't need a knife to make their jacket say the right thing. Kinda shows my hand, doesn't it? At the next tournament in 1940, the Rens would lose a stunner to the Globetrotters 37-36, and would eventually finish 4th. By the end of World War II, the team was unrecognizable and at all-time lows in popularity. In 1949, Bob was approached by the struggling NBL, the same league that 25 years earlier had rejected the Rens' plea to join, stating that the NBL was all white and would remain as such. There was a catch to their offer, however. The Rens would have to move to Dayton, Ohio to replace the market the previous Detroit Vagabond Kings had inhabited. The Dayton Rens came into existence with a name that no longer made any sense and a disenfranchised fan base left back home in Harlem. They shut down after 1 season. At this point, some of you might not like Bob. Some of you might actively dislike him. It's true that when the Rens failed, some element of it was usually on Bob, but that's what coaches do. When everything's going well, you don't notice them, and when everything's going bad, they're the first to blame. But Bob accomplished so much that even those losses shouldn't overshadow that. In 1972, Bob became the first black man inducted into the Hall of Fame. Bob's not perfect, but He believed in himself and his team so extremely that he thought they could do anything. No man can do everything. But Bob stuck around until it all crumbled to dust. In 1979, the Rennie stopped hosting events. In 2014, the nearby Abyssinian Church, which, for years, had been insistent about at least maintaining the lot, even if they couldn't afford to maintain the building, sold it. This is the Rennie now. One of the centers of the Harlem Renaissance has been replaced with condos and, in a sad turn of events, is allowed to sport the same name. Much like the Rennie, the Rens have kind of been lost to history. There's no footage of them playing, and there's very few images of them actually on the court. Part of that is because of their fall. Mostly, though, it's because the NBA anointed a different team as the vanguard of black basketball.
Don't